Kyle. My name is Lior. I've been working on this bicycle for a while now, so I just wanted to make a quick video going over some of the parts of it. And then hopefully I'll do more specific videos later down the road on each part. So, on the bicycle, the tubes are made from chromoly steel, and then I braze them together using bronze braze at the fillet joints and a silver braze down at the bottom bracket and the lug. I used a lug there because there are a whole bunch of tubes coming together and the angles are pretty critical, so I didn't want to freehand it. The silver has a much lower viscosity and lower melting point, so it can run right into the lug and hold it all together. The frame was powder coated with a clear powder coat. Normally you sandblast before powder coating, but I didn't want to do that because it turns the steel kind of white, which would defeat the purpose of a clear powder coat over the steel, so you wouldn't be able to see the heat affected zones and sort of the other cool stuff and the brazing. Some of the other things are an electric dynamo that takes power and brings it up here into the steer tube, and then I'll wire it up to go to the headlights. So I'll show you some of the components there. So it'll get rectified and then flattened out a bit, go to a battery that I pulled off of something, and then go to the lights here, and then a tail light as well, controlled by a button. There's a sort of an elevator button. It's called a vandal resistant button, which is kind of funny. And then a USB so I can charge the phone. The phone, I show you, but there are magnets here, so it just clips on right on the top. An old 3D printed part that sits on the stem, so that's kind of nifty. Some other cool bits are that there's a rack brazed directly onto the frame, so it is super strong. It doesn't have supports that go all the way down to the dropouts, so there's just these little loops that help support the bag. So what I did instead of sandblasting was just tried to sand the frame as well as I could, and for the most part that seems to have worked pretty well, but I clearly didn't do a great job on the rack because you can see it losing adhesion on some parts there, so I'll have to figure out how to maybe put a little incision there and get some glue in there to re-adhere it. While we're here, there's a 3D printed combo U-lock holder and fender for the spray, so that's pretty nifty. And I have a friend who has a carbon 3D printer that inlays carbon fiber into the print, and so hopefully he'll be able to get one printed up for me that won't break. The hope behind this frame was to make it a no compromises frame, since I'm building it myself. So I wanted to serve all of my purposes as well as it could, and so that was sort of the aim behind the design. One compromise I was willing to make is weight, because I don't race, so I was able to do a lot of stuff that I wouldn't want to do otherwise. Along those lines, I only really ever found myself using a few of the gears, so I just went for a 1x setup. And actually with this setup, it gives me about the same gear ratio range as a normal bike would, or normal gear setup. It just has larger increments between those ratios. Actually, I rode up to Montreal from here in New Haven, Connecticut on this bike, and the gear range was fine. Something else is I'm going to put retroreflective glass beads along the rim that I collected off of the street last time they painted the street, and so that'll hopefully give me a lot of side visibility. Sort of a bungee setup that seemed to offer the most utility for holding anything on the back. I made this little tool holder for tools out of leather and whatnot, lasered in stuff in it. Actually did a penetration into the wood under vacuum with boiled linseed oil to give it hopefully maximum weather durability. The seat tube is continuous. There's no seat post because, for better or worse, I'm not growing, so it doesn't need to be adjustable in height, just in angle. So I brazed on a nifty custom fitting to hopefully get that the angle, because different rails and seats have different angles. So hopefully that'll take care of that issue. The cabling actually runs primarily internally, so it jumps in here and then it goes down and it stays internal to the bottom bracket. So on most bikes, they don't even try to do that. They just have it jump right out the bottom underneath, and then probably run along the outside. But what I did is I have it internal to the bottom bracket shell running along the top in there, and then it goes inside this chainstay and pops right out the back to go to the rear derailleur. So, I mean, that's mostly just for snaz points. It's not terribly functional. In fact, it probably makes it a little harder to change the cables because I have to take the crank out if I wanted to do that. But I figured that was worth it. And then, let's see, one thing I forgot is on the light, I'm going to be CNCing a little heat sink because the LED creates a lot of heat. And so it'll be mounted onto the heat sink that'll sit in here, that I'll machine out of aluminum on this guy. And the light sits on that, and then there'll have to be a pretty interesting slip ring situation to get the power from the steer tube on the inside to this light on the head tube. So that'll be pretty interesting to make. And then, okay, so sort of the coolest thing in my mind, at least aesthetically, will be wooden handlebars on the bicycle. And so I've been working on steam bending wood. This is white oak that I've been bending. This is obviously a three-piece situation. Hopefully you can see how that goes together. Given that one of my hands is currently occupied, and it'll sort of be a cool trifecta of wood on the bike, so I'll make it a little more balanced. But I've also never seen anyone be able to do this before, so it'd be cool to make that accomplishment. It's hard because bending wood of this thickness requires steel strapping on the back to maintain compression and no tension, and to do both along both planes, that primary plane and then the secondary one, you need to have a change of plane bracket, so you're pulling along the back and then the new back as you bend downwards, maintaining compression the whole time. And it's really tricky to get the timing and steaming because you have just minutes to work in and you have people running around trying to help me clamp it and bend it. So you have to be successful, but soon. The reason this won't work is because I just couldn't get the end grain to end grain adhesion good enough. And given that my half my body weight could be on the handlebars, I don't really want to risk any failure there. So that is most of the cool parts, I think. I'm sure there are more that I'm forgetting. But yeah, I definitely want to make more videos specific to each component. So if you would like a video specific to the steam bending or clear coating steel, because there are tons of options there, how I cut and braze the steel tubes and how to do all the geometries, and designing all of that. If you're interested in videos about how I chose the tubes, all the different components on the bike. A lot of people are into obviously components and the one by gear calculations. How to build up the wheels, just wheel building, especially with a dynamo, can be a little tricky. How I'm doing all the wiring and electronics. What else? Designing and printing the U-lock holder and fender, maybe the phone mount. How I'm going to apply the retroreflective glass beads, the wooden saddlebag chain guard, the vacuum penetration with various liquids. What else? And then I'm working on some other projects, so if you're interested in seeing how I laser cut wooden business cards or how I make wooden watches. One of the other projects that I've been working on is making a knife, a steel knife, so forging that, and then what I'm doing later today is heat treating, quenching, tempering that. So that should be pretty cool. So I'll try to get some footage of that. This is just a magnet on a stick, so I can see when it reaches the non-magnetic point, because that's when you want to quench, thereabouts. And then the process of heat treating steel. Be happy to make a video on that. Feel free to comment or let me know somehow, and I will be happy to make a video on that and put the time into editing. So thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Have a good one.